I'm not seeing in the chat room, and I'm not seeing any hand raised. Okay, so I will. Okay, so quickly, let's look at the overview of strategic human resource management. Like I said, the level 1 gave us a general background of HR operations, general background of all we need to know as professionals regarding HR and HR operations. We looked at different things. Now, in level 2, we are going to be looking at the strategic human resource management. And in the strategic human resource management is more of proactive ways of managing people to be able to deliver organizational results. So it's essentially bordering around aligning HR practices, aligning HR policies, aligning HR systems to business strategies, business policies, and systems in order to deliver organizational goals. It also has to border around aligning HR strategies among themselves in forms of bundles, in forms of coherence. So there is alliance between HR practices to deliver goals. There is alignment between HR practices, systems, processes, and procedures with business systems, business strategies, and business procedures to deliver corporate results. It also, to a great extent, has to do with aligning HR practices with the external environment to be able to meet up with organizational goals. In human resource management, we still talk about things like corporate social responsibilities, and we look at the effect of external factors like the political factors, economic factors, legal factors, among others. So we look at all of those things and how we can align HR strategies to meet up with those requirements. So that's what HR strategies, what this course is going to help us achieve. How do we align HR strategies with other HR strategies? How do we create that coherence and congruence among HR practices? How do we create alliance or fit? How do we create fitness between HR practices and business systems? And how do we create HR alignment with the external environment? The whole essence of all of this is to promote productivity, ensure there is a greater job satisfaction, there is a greater employee retention, there is higher achievement of corporate goals and individual goals. The relationships are well managed, both employee and employer relationship, they are well managed to deliver results. And then we are looking at it also that by the time we have good strategic human resource management practices in place, it would have helped in achieving personal goals, business goals, and societal goals. So it's a rub-off. Okay, so we have the humans as the seed, or the human capitals as seeds, and then when they germinate, they have their impact on the organization, and then they have their impact on the society. So the SHRM, or Society for Strategic Human Resource Management, rather, it gives us a broader view to people management. It gives us a more proactive view to people management. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the next few minutes that we have. So the first lecture we're going to be looking at is the strategic human resource management, the overview. So let me begin by looking at the objectives. Please, I would like to confirm that you can see my screen. Please, if you can see my screen, session objectives, please kindly type 22 in the chat room. If you can see my screen, session objectives, please kindly type 22 in the chat room. If you can see my screen, session objectives, please kindly type 22 in the chat room. Let me be sure that the screen is showing. Now, if the screen is not showing, please type 00. Okay, so section objectives. So in this particular section, we want to explain what strategic human resource management is all about. We would like to review the basics and components of human resource management. We will also discuss the principles of strategic human resource management, and then we'll elaborate on the SHRM frameworks or models. Please, in this context, if you hear HRM, please, it simply means strategic human resource management. By introduction, strategic human resource management provides a framework linking people management and development practices to long-term business goals and outcomes. I will always want us to have this in mind, that SHRM is more of providing a system, providing a framework that helps better in people management and development, and also aligning them with the long-term business goals and outcomes. Now, it focuses on longer-term resourcing issues within the context of an organization's goal and the evolving nature of work. It also informs other HR strategies such as reward or performance, determining how they are integrated into the overall business strategy. Attracting and keeping talented and skilled employees is one of the most important challenges organizations face in today's dynamic business world. Now, irrespective of the company's size, whether small, big, small, medium, or big, every organization is facing this single problem of aligning people to organizational goals, recruiting the right talent to deliver organizational goals. And that's why, till date, people like Coca-Cola will still be recruiting, people like Shell will still be recruiting, because it is a challenge that every organization is facing, irrespective of their size. They always want to have the best people in their team, the best talent in their team. So recruiting the best talent is often a tedious assignment. It's a tedious assignment. HR on its own, in fact, there is no aspect of HR that is an easy task. Every aspect of HRM is tedious, okay? And one of the most tedious aspects is the aspect of strategic HRM, because the key word there is strategy. So you are aligning HR strategies to business strategies. And when we talk about strategy, we are talking about futuristic approach to achieving a goal. So strategic HRM has to do with forecasting, has to do with analyzing, defining and redefining approaches and systems and frameworks that will deliver results, business results on the longer term. Okay, so by default, strategic HRM focuses more on creating people for sustainability purposes, for continuity purposes, right? Creating people or managing people for sustainability and continuity purposes, right? Now, definitions of SHRM. Strategic human resource management is the process of linking the human resource function with organization strategic objectives to improve performance. Strategic HRM or people strategy is about creating a coherent planned framework for employees to be hired, managed, and developed in ways that support an organization's long-term goals. It helps ensure that the various aspects of people management work together to drive the behavior and climate needed to create value and meet performance targets. It focuses on longer-term people issues, matching resources to future needs, and large-scale concerns about structure, quality, culture, values, and commitment. It must also be a response to the evolving nature of work itself. So the human resource management strategic approach, number one, has to do with linking human resource functions to strategic objectives of the organization, which is towards boosting performance. And you know, whenever we start talking about performance, it links to business strategies. All right. And then apart from looking at human resource management in the longer term, which is on the sustainable basis or continuous basis, we also need to look at HRM on the basis of the work evolvement or how work is evolving. All right. It rained cat and dog in Abuja in the early hours of today. And on my way to work, I discovered that the traffic was so terrible. And if I were to continue, I won't meet up by 10 o'clock to be in class. So I had to reverse the car and go back to my house. And I'm doing the lecture from my house. So that is part of the evolving work. Now, you know, in the default traditional system, if you were to miss work, you face query. But now it is hinging on performance. You can deliver performance from anywhere you are right now. That's part of the work evolution. So today we talk about remote working, we talk about virtual assistants, we talk about artificial intelligence and a whole lot. Now, in this particular course, in this particular level, we are looking at managing the strategies or coming up with strategies that can help us understand this evolving nature of work itself. Sometimes 2019, yeah, I believe 2019, we did a series on the future of work, even before the advent of COVID. We did a series on the future of work, how disruptions will be coming up due to technological advancement. We never thought that COVID was going to be out, and then it was going to be a major driver driving this whole work evolution today. All right, so in strategic HRM, it sees the future and begins to lay up foundation, begins to lay up frameworks, begins to create the interlinks that will help in managing the situations as they arise. And that's why in strategic HRM, you see components like situational factors that comes to play. And in talking about situational factors, we have short-term situational factors, middle-term or medium-term situational factors. And then we have long-term situational factors. So we can, the longer our ability to forecast HR needs, the better for us. And you know, as we forecast HR needs, we are not just forecasting HR needs as regards to standard or yes, let me use the word standard work environment. We are forecasting based on the agility, on the dynamism, on the evolution that is taking place in the work environment. There is a very high tendency that in the next 5-10 years, we are going to have much more greater change in the HR environment than we've ever had since the inception of HR, because technology is creating a whole lot of changes. We are having business paradigm shift. There is altering. Of course, HR is dependent on the business environment. So we're having a paradigm shift in the business environment. There is altering, basically every other thing that is linked to business. So we need to also sit down as HR and ask the question of where will the future of work be? Okay, if we can understand, not that we understand it in perfect reality, but we have a clue of what the dynamism of the nature of work will be. It will help us begin to draw up data, draw up inferences, draw up extrapolations, and make interpolations as well to how we can come up with standard processes and systems, agile processes and systems that will help us to get better in driving, in creating value and driving performance. Okay, so the whole HR value system is subject to the impact of the evolution of the nature of work itself. That's where the strategic HRM comes to play. All right. Still on the definition of strategic human resource management, there is no single HRM strategy that will deliver success in all cases. Now, I want us to have this information as key. What works for Mr. A may not be able to work for Mr. B. In my last class, or one of my classes during the just concluded HR general level, one of the facilitators said something. He said, one thing about management, I cannot tell you yes or no. Management only gives you standards, gives you policies. And that's what we talk about conformance and compliance, right? Now, it is left for you to manage your understanding and application to produce the kind of performance you want to have. Bringing that to this particular slide we have here, it is important that we understand that strategies are custom-based. I would like us to understand that. Strategies are custom-based. Strategies are customized. That's what I'm trying to say. So the strategy that worked for company A might not work for company B. They might even be in the same industry, but you understand that there are different things that affect strategy. One of the things that affect strategy is the objectives. One of the things that affect strategy is the culture. One of the things that affect strategy is the company design. One of the things that affect strategy is the commitment of management to the strategy itself. One of the things that affect strategy also is the people behavior. The people behavior, the behavior of the people within the organization. Among other things that affect strategy are the skills, the competencies, the knowledge, and the abilities of the people within the organization. The value system of the organization also affects strategy. Now you come to looking at the external dimensions that also affect strategy. You look at the political factors, you look at the economic factors, you look at the legal structures or the legal factors, the socio-cultural, the socio-economic factors, the technological, the complete environmental system. So you see, there are different things. Now, strategy is simply the function of our understanding and manipulations of these factors to be able to deliver the right result. Okay, you have different people producing bread, for instance, different people producing bread or different companies producing bread, but you find that one company is dominating. The simple differentiating factor is strategy. And then by the time you begin to look at the component, the different dimensions that make up both the strategy, both from the strategy analysis or the needs analysis that develop the strategy down to the post-execution review, find that they are a component of several factors that have been mixed based on understanding to be able to deliver that. Now, as a strategic HR person, we need to understand this part of strategy or this part of human resource management, that the human resource management that works, the strategies, the policies, the principles, the procedures that work for company A might not work for company B. All right. What works for us in Africa might not work for another climate completely, another environment completely. It might not work in US. It might not work in Asia. Okay. So we need to understand this particular state. Very, very important. And by understanding that, it helps us to think more rather than doing a copy and paste approach to people management. Organizations must define their own unique strategy according to their specific context, culture, and objectives, among other factors that could affect this strategy. People professionals or HR professionals are instrumental in applying their expertise to understanding. That's the key word I've been using. Understanding the organizational circumstances, and then application, designing human capital value chains that reflect stakeholder demands. In strategic human resource management, we talk a whole lot of stakeholders. You hear us talk much about stakeholders, because in strategic human resource management, we are about creating the right value chain for all the people involved in the human resource environment. We talk about the employers, we talk about the employees, we talk about the customers, we talk about the investors, we talk about the partners, we talk about the external environment, the government, the suppliers, the other components, other people components that make up that particular market or that particular business environment where we find ourselves as a company, right? So stakeholder demands are taken into cognizance when dealing with strategic human resource management. And then, no matter how well designed, no strategy will work unless the organization has the right people with the right skills and behaviors in the right roles, motivated in the right way, and supported by the right leaders. This is very, very important. A whole lot of people face frustration in their working places. Tell you management is not supporting what we're doing, and a whole lot of concerns come up. Some will tell you we have good strategies, but we don't have the right people with the right skills to meet up with these strategies and all of that. So for strategic HRM to work, we must have the right people with the right skills and behaviors in the right rules, motivated in the right way, and supported by the right leaders. Still on the definition of human resource management, strategic human resource management. The strategic HRM is an approach that defines how the organization's goals will be achieved through people by means of HR strategies and integrated HR policies and practices. This statement divides HR into, or divides strategic HRM into two basic phases. You have what we call the HR fit, strategic fit, and under the fit we have what we call the vertical fit and the horizontal fit. And then we'll also talk about the external fit. Now, vertical fit simply talks more of how HR strategies align with business strategies to deliver business results, right? That's the vertical fit, the HR strategies versus business strategies. Then the horizontal fit talk about how HR strategies are integrated among themselves, are aligned among themselves to be able to deliver HR results, HR outcomes, expected HR outcomes. That is called horizontal fit, or we call it bundle, HR bundles. Okay, so either you call it HR bundle or you call it HR bundle or horizontal fit. In some other contexts, they call it congruence or they call it coherence, all right? Okay, so that is principally the two things we have. We have the HR fitness, and then you have also the HR flexibility. So the fitness deals with the vertical fitness, business and HR strategy, the horizontal fitness, the integrated HR strategies, how they align with themselves, and the external fit, how the HR strategies fit with the environment in which they are operating, the corporate social relationship, how it is fitted. Now you talk about the flexibility. The flexibility talks of two things. You have the resource flexibility, and then you have the coordination flexibility. The resource flexibility talks of how organizations are able to manage the resources they have, allocate the resources they have effectively to drive results. Okay, how they are able to make the best use and the most use of their resources, irrespective of circumstances. So how are they able to prioritize? How are they able to allocate, organize, and make the most of resources? That boils down to talking about competitiveness, the competitiveness of organizations. Now, the next one talks of coordination. How do you manage your staff? How do you manage the employees? How do you manage the processes, the HR processes, the HR systems, the practices, and all of that to be able to deliver results? So if you look at the two ends of strategic HRM, talking about the strategic fitness and strategic flexibility. Strategic fitness, you have three aspects of the strategic fitness. The vertical fit, business to, that's relationship or the alignment of HR strategies to business strategies to drive performance and to drive productivity. Then you have HR strategies aligning with themselves, HR bundle, HR practices, HR systems, HR culture, HR value system, all together aligning with themselves to be able to deliver HR outcomes. Then you have the external fit, HR strategies aligning with the business ecosystem, the external environment to be able to deliver results. That's talking about strategic fit or the HR fitness. Then to the other end is the aspect of flexibility, all right? Flexibility, how flexible is the organization towards managing changes, towards managing introduction of new things, towards managing disruptions, towards managing innovations and all of that. And that brings us to two kinds of flexibility, HR flexibility. You have the resource flexibility and you have the coordination flexibility. The resource flexibility talks of how we're able to manage our resources to deliver results, even in the most uncertain times, the most agile periods. How are we able to integrate agility to HR practices and to business practices, maximizing the benefits of the scarce resources that we have? That's HR resource flexibility. Then you talk of coordination flexibility, managing your systems, managing your processes, managing your people to be able to deliver results. That is HR coordination flexibility. All right, that is where the first point is taking us to. Now, the central premise of the human resource management theory is that successful organizational performance depends on a close fit or alignment between business and human resource strategy. Therefore, strategic human resource management techniques can be further defined as the linking of human resources with strategic goals and objectives in order to improve business performance and develop organizational culture that fosters innovation, flexibility, and competitive advantage. As we go on, if you have any question, please feel free to pause me and then ask your questions. Now, benefits of strategic human resource management. Number one, it identifies and analyzes external opportunities and threats that may be crucial to the company's success. It provides a clear business strategy and vision for the future. It supplies competitive intelligence that may be useful in the strategic planning process. It recruits, retains, and motivates the right people for the right roles. It also develops and retains highly competent people. So it is more of talent management. It also ensures that people development issues are addressed systematically. It supplies information regarding the company's internal strengths and weaknesses, and also helping to develop strategies in dealing with those strengths and weaknesses. It helps to meet expectations of the customers effectively and to also ensure high productivity. It also ensures business surplus through competence. These are some of the benefits of strategic human resource management. Now, what are the strategic human resource management? What led us to coming up with strategic human resource management? Strategic HRM is based on three prepositions. The first preposition is that the human resource or human capital of an organization plays a strategic role in its success and is a major source of competitive advantage. That's the number one rationale for which strategic human resource management evolved. Number two, HR strategy should be integrated with its business plan. That's the vertical integration. The central premise of strategic human resource management theory is that successful organizational performance depends on the close fit or alignment between business and human resource strategies. Now, the other one we have there is that individual HR strategies should be coherent by being linked to each other to provide mutual support. That's the horizontal integration. So if you look at the basics of strategic human resource management, it brought out three formulations. Formulation number one is the formulation that of what we call the resource-based view theory, the resource-based view theory. And the resource-based view theory states that the capacity of an organization is dependent on the capacity of the people within the organization. The functionality of an organization is dependent on the functionality of the people within the organization. The quality of an organization is dependent on the quality of people within the organization. That's a resource-based view theory. So that resource-based view theory makes it paramount to say that people are the most important resources in the organization. And then it also makes people the driving force for any form of competitive advantage for the organization. So that's number one, resource-based view theory. Now, the second formulation that it tries to establish is the formulation of what we call the vertical integration. Vertical integration. Vertical integration is same word as what we call the fitness, all right? Or integration is the same as what we call the fitness. Now, integration here The vertical integration talks of how do we integrate business strategies to HR strategies to deliver results. That's vertical integration. And then the last one, the last formulation talked of the bundles. Okay, talked of the bundles or the horizontal integration. The horizontal integration now talks of how do business or perhaps HR practices cohere among themselves to be able to deliver expected HR outcomes. So if you look at it, you have the two dimensions of business environment. The external environment, talking about a competitive advantage, right? Using people to drive competitive advantage. That's the external fitness. Okay, external fitness. Then you have the internal fitness. The internal fitness now divided into two: the horizontal integration and the vertical integration. Horizontal integration dealing with how do HR practices, HR bundles cohere to be able to deliver expected HR outcomes. And then the vertical integration, how do HR practices cohere with general business practices to be able to drive organizational performance. Now, components of strategic HRM. In most tests, you see a whole number of things, but all of these things have been summarized into 4 basic components. The first is the visions and the objective of an organization. The visions and objectives. In some other contexts, they will tell you strategic intents. The strategic intents need to further deepen to give you what are the tangible and intangible expectations of an organization. What are the sole purposes for which an organization was developed for? Okay, so you have the vision and the vision, the mission, the goals and objectives as one of the components of strategic HR, and that's where we talk of being purposeful. And then the other one talks about people being the primary sources. So the second component of strategic human resources is people, the human capital, the human resources. The third one are the HR activities, the HR policies, the HR programs that people work on to deliver strategic advantages, right? And then the last one is the pattern and the plan. And the pattern and the plan talks of the HR plans. Okay, the HR plans, HR strategies that we put on paper, the HR strategies and plans that have been put together to be able to deliver the results expected. So from what we see on the screen, we'll have the first, the component that focuses on an organization's human resources, that's people, as the primary source of competitive advantage. Number 2, you have the HR programs, the policies, and the practices to drive competitive advantage. Number 3, you have the pattern and the plan that brings the integrations to work, both the vertical integrations and the horizontal integrations. And then you have the practices, the people, practices, and plan patterns are purposeful. That's talking of the objectives, the visions, the goals that we want to achieve as an organization. So these are the 4 basic components of a strategic HR. Now, if you want to move your organization to being strategic, you just need to look at these 4 components. What are the visions, the purposes, the intents of the organization? Now, by looking at the intent or by looking at the objective, you already begin to consider business strategies that will help achieve those HR objectives, right? Okay, or achieve the corporate objectives. Now, by looking at the business objective, you're beginning to ask yourself the question, what kind of people do we need to achieve this business objective? So you're seeing a linkage from the top management objectives to the business objectives to the people objectives, right? And then within the people objectives, you're beginning to ask, what kind of things do we do to retain people to continuously deliver value? So you're driving down from vertical integration to horizontal integration. And then from what do we do to retain people, you're asking yourself the question, how do we ensure that we are good citizens as an organization? How do we become good citizens? How do we play the role of compliance and conformance? That's talking about the external fit. So is a linkage. HRM is just a linkage, linking you from one point to another with strategy in view and with strategic advantage to achieve. All right. Now, principles of strategic human resource management. Please, if you have a question, feel free to ask me and I will answer you. If you have a question, feel free to ask me and I will answer you. Okay. Now, principles of strategic human resource management. We have the principle of comprehensiveness. HRM should be closely matched to business objectives. That's one. Then we have the principle of coherence. Allocation and activities of HR integrated into a meaningful whole. So every HR bundle should be meaningful. Number three, principle of control. Effective organizations require a control system of cohesion and direction. You have principle of communication strategies understood and accepted by all employees. Open culture with no barriers. So there should be effective communication of strategies developed and how the strategies will be implemented. They have the principle of credibility. Staff trust top management and believe in the strategies. Principle of commitment. Employees motivated to achieve organizational goals. Principle of change, continuous improvement and development. Continuous improvement and development essential for survival. They have principle of competence. Organizations competent in achieving their objectives dependent on individual competence. So that takes us back to resource-based view theory, the resource-based view theory. The competency of the organization is dependent on the competency of the people within the organization, right? They have the principle of competitive advantage comes from unique strategies. They have the principles of cost effectiveness, that's competitive, fair, reward, and promotion systems. These are the basic principles of strategic human resource management. Linking human resource management practices and business strategies. The issue of fitting HR practices to business strategy is becoming an increasingly important and relevant HR issue for HR staff and line managers. HR fit involves making sure HR activities make sense and help the organization achieve its goals and objectives. There is a need for strategic flexibility and a strategic fit for the firm's long-term competitive advantage. The fit is defined as a temporary state in an organization, whereas flexibility is defined as the firm's ability to meet the demands of the dynamic environment. So strategic fitness is considered as temporary because it's always changing. The strategy used today might not be the strategy used tomorrow. So the fitness is always changing. But flexibility deals more with how do you meet with the demands of the ever-evolving business environment, ever-shifting, ever-changing business environment. Still on linking human resource practices and business strategies. The three aspects of HR fit, I think I've mentioned this before. We have the vertical fit. This aspect of vertical fit concerns the coincidence between HR practices and overall business strategy. We have the horizontal fit that relates to the extent to which HR practices or HR activities are mutually consistent. Consistency ensures that the HR practices reinforce one another. Then you talk about the external fit, that concerns how well HR activities meet the demands of the external environment. Ensuring these aspects of fit requires HR practice choices. The challenge is developing internally consistent configurations of HR practice choices that help implement the firm's strategy and enhance its competitiveness. Still on linking human resource management practices and business strategies. We have two types of flexibility. I've also mentioned this before. We have the resource flexibility. That is the extent to which a firm can apply its resources to a variety of purposes. It also involves the cost, difficulty, and the time needed to switch resources from one use to another. We have the coordination flexibility concerns the extent to which an organization has decision-making and other systems that allow it to move resources quickly from one use to another. This task is accomplished by having an effective partnership between HR managers and line managers. Now, what are the possible barriers to successful human resource management implementation? We have inducing the vision and mission of the change effort. It can be a barrier. Inducing the vision and mission of the change effort. High resistance due to lack of pressure from the bottom line. Interdepartmental conflicts, the commitment of the entire senior management team. If they are committed, well, it will drive. If they are not committed, it will not drive. Plans that integrate internal resources with external requirements. If we have such plans, yes, HRM will fly. If we don't, then it will not fly. Limited time, money, and resources. The status quo approach of employees, when there is resistance from employees on how this is how we used to do it, this is how it has been, and all of that, it can also affect the implementation of SHRM. Fear of incompetency of senior level managers to take up strategic steps. Diverse workforce with competitive skills sets. If we're unable to manage diversity, then it will affect SHRM implementation. Then we have the fear towards the organization in the wake of failures. If we tried it and it failed, those who brought up the ideas may think we will be victimized, we will be expelled, we will be sanctioned, and all of that. So all of those, or some of these and more, you still have things like improper strategic assignment, a leadership conflict over authority, like we're having in Nigeria now, PDP. Okay, PDP is having this number 3 challenge, this number 11 challenge. They will have ramification for power relations. They're also having the same challenge. Vulnerability to legislative changes. They're also having the same challenge. Resistance that comes through the legitimate labor institutions. Okay. Presence of an active labor union, rapid structural changes, economic and market pressures influenced the adoption of strategic HRM and more diverse outward-looking approach. All of these can, if not well managed, will affect the implementation of strategic human resource management. Now, as we begin to round up, we'll look at strategic human resource management frameworks, or what we consider as models. We'll have 5 of them that we'll look at. You have the Harvard model, you have the Warwick, you have the 5 Ps, you have the Ulrich, and you have the ASTD. ASTD is American Society for Training and Development. Now, I'm not going into the depth of how they were formed, who formed them, when they were formed. I'm not going into the history of their formation or their evolution. Rather, I'm focusing on the framework that has been built and then looking at the components. And our own here is to explain these components so that we can, on our own, apply it in situations that require them. So the first we'll look at there is the Harvard model. The Harvard model, just as the name is, Harvard, was created by the Harvard Business School. Now, what did they say? Harvard model is operating with 5 significant components. 5 when it comes to strategic human resource management. Harvard model is dealing with 5 components. The components are the situational factors, stakeholders' interest, human resource management policies, HR, human resource management outcomes, and long-term consequences the organization is set to accomplish. So you have situational factors, stakeholder interests, HRM policies, HRM outcomes, and the long-term consequences for all of these things joined together. According to this HR framework, the correlation between situational factors and stakeholder interests strongly affect and help shape the HRM policies, which should be implemented to lead to the desired HR outcomes, which we consider as the 4 Cs. And the 4 Cs will come out as commitment, competence, congruence, and cost effectiveness. Aspiring to improve these 4 Cs will lead to favorable consequences for individuals, for individual well-being, societal well-being, and organizational effectiveness. So Harvard believes that with the structure that is put in place, the individual, the organization, and the society will all have satisfaction. Now, the Harvard HR model nurtures cooperation and motivational practices and empowers general managers to get involved in the HR aspect of the business. It is established on the belief that human resources can give any organization a significant competitive advantage. So therefore, the employees as assets rather than costs. So this is a very wonderful aspect of the Harvard model. People should be treated as assets rather than cost item. All right. They will also have the Warwick model, the Warwick model, the Warwick model. The Warwick model, similar to the Harvard, the Warwick model focuses on 5 different elements as well. You have the outer context, which focuses on political, technical, and competitive factors, among others. So it's more of the political, the economic, the sociocultural, the technological, the legal, and the environment that affects the environment, right? Then you have the inner context concerning the organizational structure, leadership, culture, task, and technology that they use. They have the business strategy context, representing company objectives, product market, and general strategy. You have the HR context, including role definition, organization, HR outputs. Then you have the HRM content that deals with HRM flow, reward systems, employee relations, work systems, and all aspects. This framework is focused on achieving performance and company growth by reaching the appropriate balance between internal and external context, utilizing HRM context and the HRM content elements that adapt to the changes in the policy. So the Warwick mostly deals with the balancing between the environmental factors, both the internal and the external environmental factors, to make sure that there is performance and there is a corporate good. Now I have what we call the 5 Ps model also. The 5 Ps model is based on 5 constitutional aspects. You have the purpose, principles, processes, people, and performance. This is the one we most often use, like the one everyone is used to. Perhaps because it's still a new concept or it's still a new model, okay, and covers practically every aspect of what you want to discuss in strategic human resource management. So you have the purpose, okay, dealing with the organization vision, mission, and primary objective. You have the principles that define the operational protocols set to lead to achieving a purpose, the company policies and all of that. You have processes include organizational architecture, systems, and methods of operation. And then you have people, which are the vital resource performing the task in line with the appointed principles and processes. You have performance. Ultimately, is a result that can be measured by appropriate standard. The 5 Ps model is used as a tool for long-term continuity and progress of businesses, operates with the same components. Now, that's operate with the same components as we find in the Harvard. Okay. Now you have strategy prompts the system. The system affects staff behavior, and staff behavior triggers performance. So strategy prompts system, system affects staff behavior, and staff behavior triggers performance. Shortly put, according to the 5 Ps HRM model, organizational performance directly depends on the performance of people engaged in processes and guided by organizational purposes and principles. We have the Eburuche model or the business partner model, HR business partner model. In recent time, we hear more of HR business partner, HR business partner. Sometimes we wonder what is this whole HR business partner all about? Now, according to the Eburuche model, the Eburuche model falls under the creative human resource management and focuses on organizing HRM functions in 4 central roles. You have the strategic partner, change agent, part, and employee advocate. Rather than focusing on processes and functions, this model is centered around people of the organization and the role, the grand scheme of things. So it's a people-based model. the Eburuche model is a people-based model. It's a people-based model, and we see a reflection of what this is all about. So if we have an organization strategically made up of systems, strategic focus, people, and operational focus. So we have HR business partners that can be considered as strategic partners, where they create alignment with systems and the strategic focus. That's the vision and the objectives and the mission statement. Then you have those that also create strategic alignment between strategic focus and people. That's the change agent. They have those that create alignment between operational focus and people. That's employee champion. And they have those that create alignment between operational factors or operational focus and the system. That's administrative expert. So as a strategic human resource person, you could be a strategic partner, you could be a change agent, you could be an administrative expert, and you could be an employee champion. Then we have the American Society for Training and Development Competency Model. The model delivers a roadmap that lays out performance against a credible set of descriptors. This framework is founded on 3 subsequent layers of blocks. These blocks are the foundational level. In the foundational level, we're assessing competencies, essential competencies like personal, interpersonal, and managerial competencies. Then we have the focus level, which introduces the area of expertise, such as coaching, improving employees' performance, social learning, career planning, and evaluating. And then we have the 3rd level that deals with education level. It focuses on 4 crucial professional roles: learning strategies, project manager, business partner, and professional specialist. So as a HR expert, you could actually work as a learning strategist under the execution role. On the implementation side of SHRM, you could work as strategist, learning as strategist, project manager, business partner, and professional specialist. Important thing about the American Society for Training and Development that I want us to know, it says that the ASTD competency model considers professional development the key to personal and company success. It mainly questions what competencies should people possess and develop to succeed in their field and offer a valuable contribution to the organization. So these are the 5 different models of strategic HRM. We've looked at the Harvard model, we looked at the Warwick model, we looked at the 5 Ps model, we looked at the Eburuche model, and we looked at the ASTD model. I said ASTD means American Society for Training and Development. Now I want to ask a question. Which of the model is people-centered? Which of the model is people-centered? Is it Harvard? Is it Warwick? Is it ASTD, or is it Eburuche? Let me get your answer in the chat room. Which of these models is people-centered? Is people-centered rather than process-centered? Is it Eburuche, Warwick, Harvard, ASTD? Okay, let me get the answer. All right, so Martha said the Eburuche model. Any other answer? Any other answer? Any other answer? Okay, so let's round up. Now, in summary, the strategic human resource management is a proactive approach of managing people in order to meet both employee and corporate goals. Strategic human resource management must align with business strategies to deliver results, must align HR strategies to business strategies, deliver results. The primary source of competitive advantage is the human capital and must be well managed. All right, so that's it on the introductory to the class. Now, if there's any question,